brotherly love, man. Anything so lovely at one point in time. Very hard time in my life, but I persevered through that moment. It was cool. Got Brandon Graham here, one of my good friends. City, fan, fanatic, football fanatic, man. Just the opportunity to be able to come back and actually go through this process, being interviewed, Wells Fargo Center. Definitely didn't think that it would happen like this, man. But it's, it's how God aligns everything, man. It's really how He aligns it, man. So I'm excited. I know it's gonna be a great interview. I know it's gonna resonate with people. Suicide Awareness Month, man. We trying to save lives. We trying to help people heal. That's what it's all about, man. I talk about this all the time, but we gotta be consistent with this thing, man. Because being vulnerable is not easy. Especially as men, we ain't trying to talk about our feelings, but we gotta get them feelings and emotions out. Because it'll take us down a path we don't really want to go down. So, I'm here to tell you, man, the grass is greener. And you can be great at whatever you do. Football is just what you did. It's not who you are. How will you find your purpose? It's time for you to find your purpose, man. Outside of the helmet. Welcome to the Circle of M. I am your host, Marcus Smith II. We are back with another edition on the Circle of M. Obviously, we talk about mental health. We talk about life. But today, I have a good friend here with me today, and John Clark from NBC Philly. Man, how are you doing today? Well, first off, we like to start on the show. We talk about how the guests are feeling, because at the end of the day, we have to go throughout the day knowing how we feel. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. And I like the vibe we have. I like talking with you about things that we've gone through. But I'm feeling good. It's a beautiful time in Philadelphia right now with the Phillies maybe making the playoffs and the Eagles starting off great. The hopes of playoffs and maybe even more. So it's a good time in Philadelphia. There's a good vibe right now.
Yeah, I think it definitely, me coming in here, first of all, this is a great vibe. Just being here with you is a great vibe. We had a chance to actually talk for a while, and we talked about mental health and the different struggles of what us athletes going through. And you even talked a little bit about some of your struggles, like growing up. But first, I really wanted to talk to you about what got you into actually doing, reporting and actually being the person that you are today, doing what you do. What got you into doing that?
Well, I think growing up, I wanted to be a pro athlete. And then at some point I realized I don't have the skill to do it. So I said to myself, I love sports. I think sports brings people together. Yeah. I think when you're a part of a team, you learn about other people, other backgrounds, but you also learn how to pull through together. Right. And you also understand you can't do life by yourself. You got to lean on other people to get help. And maybe somebody else has experience with something and they can help you. So I love the team concept. I love sports, and I love telling stories. And one of the reasons I got into this was your story, is to tell people stories. I remember doing a story in Florida of a guy who had MS, and he was doing marathons on crutches, and he would go for 8 hours, and he would go for so long, the rubber on the crutches would wear off like 5 times during the marathon. I'm like, wow, that's an inspirational story. We want to get that on the news to help inspire people and tell inspirational stories. I love storytelling. So In the end, I'm a failed athlete, never made it to the level you did, but I wanted to be involved in sports because I think it's great for society.
I think is what you just said, like it's great for society. It's very important, especially for you to be on this show. I thank you for coming on to the show because
Thanks for having me.
We have to get, as athletes, be able to get you guys' perspective too on what you guys deal with on a daily basis. And I know sometimes when I was in Philly, you will have different reporters and they would, they have to write. They have to do their job. So I wanted to be able to get you on to kind of talk to you about what you guys go through too. And, some of your battles, as a young person. I know we talked a little bit about some of your battles when you were younger with your father. Do you want to expound on some of the things that you went through mentally to kind of get you where you are today?
Well, I do think growing up, there was such an emphasis. For me, all I heard about was you got to get good grades. You got to get good grades. You got to go to a good college to be successful. Wow. And so I was thinking, okay, that's the only way to be successful. And I didn't even realize it, and it really hit me in high school. They later tested me and did all kinds of things that I have ADHD or ADD. Wow. And school became a big-time struggle. So much so, I skipped school a lot in my senior year, and I started to do other things, and my grades were not good. I was disruptive in class, doesn't pay attention in class. Those were my comments on my report card. And so I was feeling really down about myself, and my self-esteem was not good. And so I think the key to everybody is finding something you love to do, and then that gives you confidence. When you have confidence, you have good self-esteem. So I think what happened to me was, I think my self-worth was all based on grades or doing well in school, because that's what kind of my family, like aunts and uncles, parents, everybody, that was like what the family values were, doing well in school. So when I wasn't doing well in school, I didn't feel good about myself. So I think it took me a while after high school to say, you know what, I'm going to go do what is my passion and what I want to do. And then once I got involved in sports broadcasting at Temple University, you then say, okay, to get there, to get where I want to go, I got to get good grades. Okay, I really got to get good grades and concentrate. So then I started to get confidence back and self-esteem back. And so that's why I encourage everybody out there, whether you have ADD, ADHD, anything that you've got that is something is weighing on you or you can't accomplish what you want to accomplish because of it, go find what you love to do and then find a way to make money doing it. And that'll give you confidence.
Right. Man, that's crazy that you said that, because we talked a little bit about before, like sometimes even with our parents and the way that, we're structured, it is not their fault because that's just the way that they were structured. I think being confident is like one of the most important things when you're seeking out your true purpose. And once you got to Temple, did you feel like you had found your purpose? And through that time of you becoming who you are today, were there any battles that you had to deal with even coming through that, like some anxieties that you faced, even like coming on the air and actually talking to people?
Oh, yeah. I remember at Temple University, the first time they're like, okay, you need to go stand in front of the library and you need to go record a stand-up where you talk into the camera for the first time. And I'm like nervous and scared, and I see people coming and going, in and out of the library, and I'm like, oh my God, they're all looking at me, like, what am I gonna say? And I think the first time I'm looking into the camera, you don't blink, so you're like, we are standing in front of Temple University's library, and it's not natural. Yeah. And so it just takes reps, but it also takes confidence. So now, in our jobs, we're standing in front of like 10,000 people sometimes. You got people all around you. You got a lot of things going on. I had a guy put his finger up my nose and pick my nose when I was live down in Miami before an Eagles-Dolphins game when they had like 10,000 Eagles fans. So then you learn, you get confidence through reps. But I remember that first time in front of the library, I was scared to death because I'm like, what are they going to think of me? What if I misspeak? What if I don't say it right? Yeah. And so you then what I did was I got a friend and I said, I know you have a camera. Let's go to an empty field. Right. And I said, can I just practice talking into this camera? And it just takes reps. Once you do something a bunch of times, you get confidence from doing it.
Right.
And so I had a lot of trepidation, even the first couple times I was on the air. I remember somebody saying, well, why don't you just have a little bit of wine? That'll help you relax. And I'm like, uh-oh, I don't want this to become a crutch. But you kind of have to get over. I think in the end, I was a shy kid growing up a little bit. Right. But then you get the reps, and it gives you confidence.
Man, a lot of people need to hear that. And I need to hear that, because sometimes we get down on ourselves, and it takes us some time to actually get that confidence back and do the reps and continue to do what we love to do, and don't quit, because we'll feel like, oh man, like I can't get it right. But if what you just said was basically, man, if you keep going, if you get the reps, if you do what you feel like you're called to do, then you'll get good at it. So man, I appreciate you saying that, because there's a young newscaster, or there's someone who wants to be where you are, that man, they need to hear that, because it's not a straight and narrow path as sometimes what you see in your head. It's like you have these like hills and valleys, but ultimately they mold you into the person that you want to become. But I wanted to ask you, once you started in Philadelphia, well, first off, how long have you been here in Philadelphia?
20 years.
20
Crazy.
years.
Dream job. Growing up here, grew up a fan of the Philadelphia sports teams, and dream job. This is the only place I ever wanted to be. Wow. I was in West Palm Beach right before Philly. I love West Palm Beach. I love the wintertime there, where you can jump in the ocean, and it's beautiful down there. But Philly is me. Like, this is where I grew up, in Delco. So, I love Philly. It's got everything. It's got the.
Is there a certain ingredient for being somewhere 20 plus years? Like, what would you tell a young person or someone how to navigate through being in a dream job for 20 years and actually doing really well at it, like how you are?
I have learned that business, or let's say any field, it's about relationships. It's about trust. Right. And so if we say to each other, hey, we're going to do each other's podcast, and I'm going to talk to you about this. If I brought you up here or had you come up here, and then I all of a sudden go into some other areas, and I'm like, I'm being deceptive. You have to be upfront and honest with people about what you want to do with them, for like a story, podcast, whatever. Because if you try to bait and switch somebody, you're just trying to trap them and get like a certain soundbite out of them. You've lost trust with that person. That person's going to go talk to other people. Oh, don't deal with this guy. So number one thing is relationships, honesty, being authentic, and coming through with what you've promised. So I would say those are the key things. But relationships is everything. When you start building relationships with people, with teams, and you go to them and say, hey, I'd really love to do an interview with so-and-so. Okay, well, we'll try to work on that for you. It might be tough, but you've been good with us. You've always come through with what you said you're going to do. You haven't lied to us. You haven't been deceitful, like you're just trying to get somebody on camera saying this. You got to be upfront and honest, and always deliver with what you say. So I think those are the key things.
And players respect that, and they love that, when guys are upfront and honest, because when they do something that they don't say, or they do something that they didn't think that they were going to do, that plays on our mental too as well. When I was talking to you about that, because, we want to be great at everything we do, but you being who you are and being able to talk to many different players, you've been able to talk to first round draft picks, right? What have you seen with us, especially being in the Philadelphia market mentally? What have you seen with us that is a common theme with us?
Well, it's crazy because, look, I'm in this business because I love Philly sports, I love telling stories, and I love people. So I always say to myself, when I'm on TV or when I'm doing a podcast, whatever, I always say, I envision that your mom and dad or your family are watching. Would I say something about that person knowing that their family's watching? I don't think I've ever said, this guy sucks. I don't think I've ever said, this guy should be fired. My job is to try to inform the people of Philadelphia and give them or help them get the information they want about their favorite players. Now, I said, hey, this guy's really struggling right now. But I try to understand the nuances of things and try to understand that there's other things going on. Like, I think you brought tremendous perspective about what Jalen Reagor went through. Yeah, he wasn't good enough in Philly. But why? Why? What was he going through? So I always try to understand those things. I'm not a hot take guy. I'd rather get perspective and context and try to let people know that. Like David Akers, I remember he missed 2 key field goals in a playoff game against the Packers. And everybody was so down on David Akers. But we later found out, we didn't know, his daughter was in the hospital at that time with getting cancer testing. And it was on his mind ridiculously. So you just try to provide context.
Me, Markelle Fultz, like some of the guys who actually went through those mental health battles, you actually had the opportunity to talk to them. Were there some common denominator that you would say with us all dealing with, the Philly fans or anything?
That's such a great question because, when teams are looking at the prospective draft picks, they can see the talent, they can see at the combine the physical skills, the measurements, all those things. But can you see into a guy's heart? Can you see into a guy's mind? And the other thing is, do they love what they do? And I remember an old Eagles draft pick. Somebody asked him, what's your favorite thing to do? His name was Antone Davis. And they said, my favorite thing to do is cook. I said, well, I want to hear a guy say, man, I wake every morning, I want to play football. I love being out on the field. I love the competition. I love football. So when you hear like, okay, another guy's favorite thing is something else, you're like, oh, well, I mean, that's not his passion. And I do see certain things sometimes, like Allen Iverson when he was drafted, or Jimmy Butler. I always say, like, those guys, it's almost like they're not afraid to die. They're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to be the guy in the moment but miss the basket. And I'm like, that's the guy I want on my team. Because in AI's case, he literally was not afraid to die. Like, he literally had, as they say, the dog in him. Jimmy Butler, same thing. So I do see sometimes Markelle Fultz and some other guys, when you interview them, I don't see that like tenacity or that dog, or like you'd see in his eyes, like maybe he's got some trepidation, maybe he's got some doubt. And Brian Dawkins is one of the greatest examples ever. Like when you talk to him, you're like, oh my God, this guy is just passion through every little cell of his body. And like sometimes you don't see that with guys coming up. Andre Dillard, I've seen a transformation. Like when he first came in, he's a little shy, looking down sometimes. And now he's like, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to put my work in. I worked out since we lost to Tampa, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get mine. So like you see a transformation where he grew into that confidence. I mean, look, the career you went into, it's like, wow, you're in a fishbowl. You're in an arena where 70,000 people at the link are watching your every move. And I don't know, some people aren't ready for that. I don't know if I would be,
I mean, I would say that I wasn't really ready for that. If you came to me and interviewed me maybe year 6, then I would probably be, more ready for it. But I think that because I was listening to the fans and listening to some of the things they would say and not just being laser focused on what I have, the perception could come off like, hey, he's not really into this. And, maybe my mind was somewhere else. Like it was just like, yo, I don't know how to get through this part. And I think it's important for us when we're talking about, mental health, and we're talking about life in general, to be able to know that, okay, you got these Brian Dawkins, you got these AIs, but then you got these people who may not be as mentally fit or mentally strong, to be able to take on that stuff. Do you think it's hard for guys like us like coming in as a 22-year-old to be able to actually be able to feel that and get past that? Or do you think, it takes growth and it takes time to be able to get past that? Do you feel like we should already be ready for that when we come in?
It's a great question. I mean, think about it. What age were you when you were drafted?
22.
Okay, so I think back, like there were so many things I was uncertain about in life and everything. And I mean, I always go back to Allen Iverson when he was drafted by the Sixers, right? Yeah. You're taking a kid from a very poor area in Virginia. He grew up, sometimes didn't have heat or air conditioning. His mom had him when she was 15. Wow. So he had a really tough upbringing, and then he was drafted into the NBA. All of a sudden, he's got a $100 million contract with Reebok. He's got this, he's got that. Did he have any training whatsoever to handle all of that money and also being placed into big city Philadelphia? All of a sudden, like you said, everybody's like, all right, we got AI now. Let's start to win. Yeah. So you can't necessarily like all of a sudden have a transformation. Right. He grew up a certain way. And I always said, I grew up like, nice area, generally nice area, and a good family structure. Right. Like what about some athletes who don't necessarily have that family structure? We all of a sudden want an athlete when they're drafted into a place, they need to say everything right. Yeah. They need to act right all the time. Yeah. They need to play well all the time. Right. And that's a tough situation. It's a crazy thing. It really is when you think about all of a sudden all this stuff is given to somebody, and do they really have the training to like handle all that? Because it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is a lot. Then you have your great players who get through that and do really well. And I've seen sometimes guys who play a long time, when they get out of the league, right, they have focused. It's like the Kobe mentality. Like, I put my full focus on football and this is what I'm going to do. But then sometimes when we stop playing and football is not there anymore, we're trying to figure out, okay, who are we under the helmet?
And so much of your career was, your value was, I'm a football player. Right. I play hurt. I go out and I play. Yeah. And your value is a football player. Okay, what am I now as a human being? Right.
That's what I like about you too. You're trying to figure out who we are as a human being, and you want to get that story and actually bridge that and push that forward. So I was going to ask you about that. Like, since you've been covering, have you had a chance to actually see the actual human being and look at the lens of the human being outside of who the person is as a football player? And then how do you kind of like abstract that and take that and help them with the interview?
Well, that's a good question. I think nowadays it's interesting because I think athletes now, more so than ever, I think they're wary of the media because like, okay, I work for NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC 10, and I look at my job as interviewing players, getting information about performance and whatever, and then, giving that to the public, like bringing some interviews to the public. But there's so much media now. There's websites, there's blogs, there's social media, where that media is so it's thrown in all together. So an athlete, if they say, "Oh, I'm getting ripped on this little blog here," and then I think all the media is like that, but we're not. And so I think athletes now, I don't think they open up as much now, or they go with like maybe their public relations team like says, "Okay, I think you should say this about this. When you're asked about this, say this." And I think it's because it's all about image now, and it's all about getting sponsorships and getting with brands. And so I think everything now is more organized, and PR teams are mostly in charge. So sometimes I don't think we see like the human side enough of athletes.
Man, I think exactly what you said. You know, sometimes you don't, but then you have you have people like you who really try to extract that actual story. When you see guys come out about mental health, right? You see Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson. You see people take time off, like Dak Prescott does stuff with mental health now, and I think it's Hurst. I can't remember what team he plays for now. I think it may have been he was playing for the Falcons before. But more guys are coming out about mental health. What do you think about guys coming out about mental health, and how important to you is mental health?
I mean, I think it's vital, and it's pretty crazy because with athletes, you can always see, okay, he tore his knee, he did this to his shoulder or whatever, but concussions, when we started to really learn about the effects of concussions, you can't see that injury. Maybe you see somebody on the field, they're not able to stand up, and you're like, oh my goodness, he's affected. But there's a lot of times where somebody's walking around or they're playing and they have a concussion. We don't see that actual tear or sprain. So then we're realizing, my God, when these guys are done playing, the effects of concussions, it's truly sad. And then you get into mental health, and Brandon Brooks, probably for me, Brandon Brooks was the first one where I was standing there interviewing him in the locker room with other media, and he's telling us, like, there were literally days where I would wake up and I feel paralyzed from my anxiety. And then Lane Johnson told me that him and Brandon, every game day, they're staying in rooms near each other in the hotel, they would literally throw up at the same exact time every game day to let out all of that anxiety. Lane is up thinking about, I got to pass protect my quarterback against one of the best DNs in football. Right. And the anxiety is just overwhelming. And so you're like, wow, sometimes we don't think about what these guys go through on a daily basis to perform. Right. So I think it is vital, because I think so many people in America need either somebody to talk to, therapy, or things to work through. And I think if we're all more open about what we're going through, like you said, it not only helps yourself, but then somebody else says, wow, I've got these same feelings. Now, I don't think I have anxiety. I think there were a couple of points in high school where I was a little depressed, like I wouldn't get out of bed because I was basically failing at school at one point. And I didn't feel like I could tell my parents that, because they wanted me to be successful. And so I think society's moving forward where we can all kind of say to each other, like, you know what, I'm not doing well today. Like, I need to talk to somebody today. Like, I'm not feeling it today. And I did a podcast with Jay Glazer where he called it the gray. And he would have the mental struggles every day of the gray. You wake up and everything's gray. I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I don't know that level. But I think it's really important what you're doing and other people are doing. He
spoke, I know Jay, because I trained at Unbreakable too before in his gym. Yeah, I trained there like in 2016, but it was amazing atmosphere. But he talked about something that helped me. He said, sometimes it would be like his chest would be feeling like it's caving in, and I felt that before. And you think you're having a heart attack, but you're really not having a heart attack. That's just something, that's your anxiety, messing with you, and you don't realize that is there. So hearing that from Jay kind of like helped me too. So that's why I know, like, your story, you being able to speak about it, and people getting your perspective is going to help somebody, because you don't know, you could just be listening in to, you might just, hey, today I just want to listen to this. And you didn't even know that, hey, they're going to be talking to you, like talking to kind of like about your story, and you could just be helping somebody. So I really thank you for just even talking about maybe just some of the depressive stuff that you went through, even in high school, because a high schooler, especially now with social media and everything that we see, like we always think that instant gratification, like I gotta have it right now because that's, kids, that's what they see.
Right.
And if they're not getting that, then they're like, I'm a nobody. Like I'm not getting enough likes. I'm not getting, you know what I'm saying? So
Right. Yeah, like one friend is on vacation on a private jet in France, or somebody just got a Lambo, or they've got the best clothes, or something like that. And I even, looking at Instagram, sometime get FOMO.
Me
Like
too.
I see
Like,
like,
oh,
oh, they're at a great concert. Damn, I'm not there. Like, and because there's so much. We now know what every single person is doing at every moment. Kardashian is flying around the world, and it's like it's almost too much. It doesn't show the real stuff.
Right.
Like, do we ever see an Instagram post like somebody say, you know what? I woke up this morning and I can't get out of bed because I'm depressed. We don't see that. All we see is, like Ben Simmons' Instagram, like he's got a new car, he's flying around in a private jet, he's dating a model girlfriend.
Right.
Well, obviously I'm not saying he had mental illness because I don't know that, but he was obviously going through something where it was affecting him where he couldn't shoot the basketball and couldn't shoot free throws. But like, he doesn't share that.
Right.
People don't share the tough stuff. Maybe we should have a site where people share the tough stuff so that, because for us, kids growing up, it's like, well, I got to be attractive. I got to have good clothes. I got to have a nice car.
Right.
And it's tough. I really feel for kids growing up now in this Instagram and social media age.
it's a blanket. It's, you talk about Ben Simmons. It's like, we're inevitably we're not going to show that. We got to show like, hey, we're doing all right. You know what I'm saying? We're doing okay, even with the noise, right?
Yeah.
But then it takes you down this path of like, I can't muster this anymore. I got to do something about it. And then you start to see people speak out more about it.
Yeah.
What would you tell just the viewers if there's one thing that a piece of you that you could give to them about a mental health journey or about just your journey, one like last remarks that you could, just tell the viewers on mental health and just life in general?
Well, I guess the thing that I can relate to is when I was growing up and then when I was in high school, I distinctly remember being in class and I couldn't focus. I was looking out the window. I was thinking of everything but school and I heard every little tiny noise. And I didn't know I had ADHD at the time, but I remember taking a couple final exams and I would read question number 1, and then I'd read question number 8. Then I'd go to question number 2, read it halfway, then jump to number 4, start to answer it halfway. My mind was like a runaway train. Yeah. And I always compare ADHD with you're watching TV, the channels are changing, you're not changing them, and you can't stop. The channels keep changing. Like everything's just jumping around. You can't stop. So like I almost flunked out of high school, and I skipped school like 40 some times my senior year because it became really tough, and it was weighing on me. And like maybe that was my way out, not going to school. But any kid out there or anybody that deals with ADHD and really has trouble learning or remembering things, or I did not do my English final exam, whatever, SAT, like just go tell somebody like, hey, I'm really having problems with this. And I eventually got tested for it and was diagnosed with it, and they put me on medication and stuff like that. But like we all have to kind of tell our loved ones, our close ones, this is what I'm struggling with. Let me try to get some help, or can you help me get some help? Because I think we can help each other through everything. We just need to be open about it. But also with ADHD or ADD, even though I almost flunked out of high school, and I actually flunked out of my first semester or 2 in college, and then I found kind of what I wanted to do. Like, don't let that deter you, because everybody's good at something. You just have to find your passion. And I guarantee you, when you find your passion, you will be good at it because it's what you love to do. It's almost not a job.
Man, that's what's up, man. You didn't let it define you, and look at where you are now. You continue to do stuff really well, and you have the platform, you have, everything right here in front of you, and you didn't let that stop you. And a lot of times, as kids, or we may not have the person to talk to. So, like he said, man, ADHD, anxiety, depression, anything that you may be dealing with, man, tell somebody. Talk to somebody about it. Man, you don't know what could happen as far as you talking to somebody. They may give you the blueprint to be able to get through the things that you went through. You may get the medicine that you need. You may find a therapist that you want. Yoga,
for me, it's working out. For me, it's
meditation.
exercising. Like that releases all of the, and it produces something good like the endorphins, which is like a drug, but that's my rhythm, working out and slowing down, my brain, which is like 100 miles an hour sometimes. So that's, you got to have your rhythm.
Well, you have it, folks. We got John Clark, man, on the Circle of M podcast. I appreciate you coming on to the show. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the channel. I know you're shacking up with us, but go subscribe to the channel. And this episode, man, is a great episode, and I appreciate you coming on, man. And we are out.